This is the simple limit of Yearwood Circle.
All right, guys, welcome to the Winner Circle podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of extraordinary leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of business and beyond. I'm your host, Jay, and today I have a renowned mental performance coach, Evan Max. He's a Wall Street pro with 25 years of experience who has made a significant impact in the field of human optimization. And also, as the founder of M1 Performance Group, he has dedicated his career to helping individuals and teams maximize their potential by enhancing their mental and emotional resilience. So today, I have someone with a strong educational foundation and years of practical experience. Something I really enjoy about him is the fact that he has developed a unique coaching methodology that blends scientific research with a real world application, which is very important. Even his approach is holistic, addressing not just the mental aspect of performance, but also integrating the physical, emotional, and strategic element to create comprehensive development plans. So today I am thrilled to have somebody who's a great person, you know, to the show to talk about the topic we have today, transforming life through the power of self-awareness. So, winners, welcome Evan Max.
Well, Jay,
Hi,
thank you for
Evan.
having me. I appreciate it.
All right, good to have you here. So, let's just go straight to the topic. Let's look at your personality first. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What led you to become a mental performance coach?
So I spent, I went to University of Pennsylvania where I was a Division I lacrosse player, and unfortunately, I blew my knees out twice. And I played for a year and a half, and I always considered myself a student athlete. And when my career ended, it was a lot of pain, but I really didn't share it with anybody because I thought it was a weakness. And this went on for a long, long time, about 15 years. I didn't want to admit to anybody I was in pain. I thought people would judge me. I felt inadequate about it. But there really wasn't much conversation about mental wellness and all those sort of things. So I spent almost 25 years managing money. And for 15 of those, I was struggling. And luckily I saw somebody and they helped me out to understand what I was feeling, what my past experiences were. And I had the opportunity later on in my career to work with a woman who brought an approach of modern psychoanalysis meets the latest research in neuroscience. And it wasn't the thought of, as a trader, get bigger, do more work, then the outcome will happen. It wasn't working for me. There was something deeper behind that. And working with her and working with somebody else, I realized that, wow, this is going to help me. And it actually did. And I knew it could benefit others, excuse me. So I'm 52 years old now. I've been coaching for almost 7 years. But when I was 46, I literally had a panic attack. I thought it was a heart attack. And luckily, my trading career was going well. But I realized, you know what? There's something wrong here. I need to take better care of myself. I need to help others. I need to help myself. And Jay, I retired. And I remember telling my brother, I said, I'm going to become a coach. I think it's so important that we help others. And he's like, how are you going to do that? You're 46. I literally went back to school to study psychoanalytical theory and neuroscience. And here I am today. So it's not like I'm not in a positive psychology camp of, yeah, we can do it, all that type of stuff. I think it's important, but it's also extremely important to know where we're starting from as people, as individuals, because our mental psyche is crucial for performance, but it's also crucial to live a fulfilling life. And it's helped me out drastically. And I've had clients for a long, long time, and I know it's working for them. That's what I do.
All right, thank you so much. That sounds That sounds inspiring, especially the fact that you had to go back to school to, get that knowledge of what some people just feel like when you get to a certain age, you might really know, you might really not want to go back to school. And education is just a process. You learn more
Yeah.
along the way. So now let's look at this other angle of it. So let's talk about M1 Performance Group. So what inspired you? Because there's an inspiration that inspired you to become a mental performance coach. All right, you could be a mental performance coach and just, probably work with an organization where you offer the service. So what is exactly inspired you to start the M1 Performance Group?
It's interesting. There's a line I use a lot and says procrastination isn't the lack of effort, but it's the fear of a future feeling. So when I worked for this group for a while, I always told my wife, I feel like I'm drafting. Like I like to take the lead in things, but there was emotion behind it. I must have been scared. There was social media I didn't know how to do. I didn't know how to do certain things. Was I smart enough to do this, even though I had advocacy experience? And so I just really honed my craft until it came to one day saying, you know what? I need to start my own company. I need to start my own group. I need to have my own voice, right? We all have different styles. We all have different voices. And it took courage. Change takes courage. There's a sense of, listen, we know that we all have feelings of doubt, of shame, of embarrassment, and rejection. These are all fears. But what I've come across in my career as a trader, as a coach, and as a human being, the greatest fear of all, the greatest, most intense feeling of all is regret. So I didn't want to regret not having the opportunity to go build something on my own with future coaches working with me, because I think what we were doing and what I do is so important in helping others. I think helping others, serving others, Jay, is bar none, could be one of the most fulfilling things ever. So I had to do it. Was I scared? Yes. Did I have fear? Yes. On paper, did it look like I could do anything? Of course. But that's just paper. I'm a human being, right? I'm allowed to have all my thoughts, feelings, and experiences. But I'm glad I
All
did. I'll
right.
tell you that much.
Yeah, that's great. You did, because right now you're changing the world right now with what you're doing, because it's very,
One
very
person at a
important.
time.
Yeah, one person at a time. So now let's try to understand self-awareness, because it's actually a very big word. You know, the word itself, when you talk about self-awareness, is a very powerful word. So I'm just going to throw it to you. How do you, as Evan Max, how do you define self-awareness? And why is it very important for personal and professional growth?
Self-awareness is obviously, just to make it, is aware of the self being you, right? Your own psyche. Self-regulation is understanding your emotions. But in order to really tap into it, we have to be able to make the unconscious conscious, right? Because the unconscious is just playing out this program in your brain and your unconscious, which is often from your childhood, your adolescent years, your caregiving years, which has been programmed by caregivers, your environment you grew up in. So we know that. We know that it is, and that's let's call that the psychoanalytical side. But the neuroscience side also tells us that through neuroplasticity, we're able to change the pathways in our brain. So why is that important? Why is self-awareness important? Because growing up, certain things we did served us. They were survival based. However, as we grow up and mature, they no longer serve us. But we keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And it's called something called repetition compulsion. We think it's a different experience, but we keep reliving the same experiences from the past, but we're unconscious about it. So it's our job when we talk about self-awareness to be aware of that. So instead of trying to survive with this old, we have to now understand that we need to change the way we behave in order to thrive. And that's self-awareness. It's basically, this is not working right now. What do I do? What do I need to change? How am I feeling and why? And there's so many different techniques, but I would say one of the biggest words to consider, and I think it's very powerful, is the word curiosity. Be curious about what you're capable of. Be curious about, wait a second, you're telling me that I have the opportunity to change? And you do. It takes, I always say consistency with evidence builds confidence. So what does that mean? The evidence is that I can change my behavior because the experience is different. But you do that more times, and it's almost like going to the gym. The more times we do it, the repetition that's put in, the circuitry starts being built, and then all of a sudden this inner confidence starts to build. But like anything else, we have to know to slow down. Slowing down means being intentional with self-awareness. It's slowing down to get it right, to build a foundation in order to speed up, which is leverage. But we need, like anybody else, like any strong house, like any strong business. But being us, it's important that we consciously choose how to build our mental foundation. And that's all based on self-awareness. It's all based on self-regulation. It's all based on a commitment and an idea and a belief that we all can change in order to thrive. And by the way, we can.
Yes, we can. Just like you said. So, but my own part, you spoke about techniques, that there are certain techniques. So, do you have a listed techniques that people, or probably exercises that individuals can use to improve their self-awareness? That's number one. And number two, so when we're talking about self-awareness, I know that there are sometimes people have what they call mental barriers that's actually blocking them from achieving their
Resistant.
goals.
Yeah.
Yes. So how can that exercise or techniques help them break the barriers?
I think it's a great
Yes.
question. And I'll give you one, a very simple one. Well, it's not simple. It sounds simple, but it does, what do they say? It gets easier. It's never easy, but it gets easier. So we call this the M1 mental model. So basically it's acknowledgement. Now, what are we acknowledging? We're acknowledging emotions, right? We know people talk about these quote unquote negative emotions: fear, anger, rage, embarrassment, shame, list goes on. But let's say for a second that they're not negative. They're just emotions, just like joy and happiness and all those things. But we know in these emotions that this carries intensity. But what happens is when we don't acknowledge them, they stay in the back of our minds and they build intensity and they start building their own narratives. So the first step is to acknowledge it. Let's say I'm angry. Now, thinking I'm angry is different than verbalizing it. I'm angry. Now it comes out. So it's gone from the darkness, let's say, to make it easy, into the light. We hear it, we somewhat see it. But what happens there, Jay, is now the intensity comes down, right? So we acknowledge, we verbalize. Now we pause. Now, why is pausing important? Pause takes the form of mental space. Now we're putting space, right? We felt we haven't behaved yet, right? So what does that mean? That we reacted. So now we would pause, right? Usually people will go fight or flight, be reactive and say, I wish I didn't do that. And they just repeat the same patterns. So now we put a pause in. Now we ask a question. Remember, self-exploratory questions put the person in the seat of influence because you're more conscious. What am I trying to accomplish? What's the best decision I can make here? What am I, right? And then we pick a behavior. Okay, I'm going to do this because we're conscious now. And what does this all bring together? Well, now we have a new experience where if I yelled at you, Jay, you yelled back at me because I triggered you, and you're like, I wish I didn't do that. I did it again. But all of a sudden, I'm yelling at you, and I still could hurt your feelings. Like, we can't control our feelings sometimes. And okay, I'm a little angry, I'm a little hurt right now. But you give yourself that space. Okay, what am I trying to accomplish here? What am I going to do if I attack Evan back? Nothing good. So how do I want to handle this? So now you build a confidence that in any struggle, any challenge, any difficult situation, you're still allowed to feel, right? This whole thing is not void of feelings. However, you have the power to choose. And what does that do neurologically? Well, we know the brain is a predicting mechanism, right? You're thinking, what am I about to say next? We're always predicting. But what happens now is when we predict into the future, which is usually predicting from past experience, we are creating new experiences now. So that little pond of all that stuff you grew up with is getting bigger. And why is that beneficial? It's beneficial because, wait a second, I can do just repetition. We start to build these new pathways. And it's amazing. I'm not saying life is not void of struggles and challenges, but what happens is when life throws struggles, obstacles, emergencies down your path, you're able to get grounded quickly. And that ties into self-awareness. It's called, right? When we think positive all the time, I want to be ready when stuff comes down the pipe. That doesn't mean it's negative thinking. It's opportunistic thinking. It's being realistic because I know I'll be able to handle it. Because I have evidence now that I've done it. I've experienced now that I've done it. So why shouldn't I be confident to know that whatever comes down my way, I'm going to be good, I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to thrive? There's evidence. We're doing it. This isn't fake it till you make it. We've proven to ourselves because we've been intentional about how we want to go about doing this, right? Life is not linear. Okay. Makes it more interesting.
Wow. That was a great point. And the fact that consistency and resilience is very important. That's one thing I summarize your point to. Like, it's not a bed of roses. It's not just going to be easy. So when it
No.
comes, you have to understand that you need to be resilient. You need to just keep moving.
And that's not being a pessimist. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're being opportunistic in moments where we can thrive.
That's valid.
Yeah, it's powerful.
So let's look at this other part. Now let's talk about the role of self-awareness when it comes to athletes, people who are in sports. What specific benefit? Because I know you understand that particular field. So what specific benefit does it provide to athletes?
It's performance is performance, right? So maybe in the trading arena, the feedback loop is quicker. Maybe in the business arena, it's a little slower. And maybe in the sports arena, it's a little bit different, right? But it's a feedback, right? It's this constant data coming at you, and it's triggering constant data within, right? That's why self-awareness is so important. For whatever you do, it's performance. We're in the performance world. But if we're able to slow things down through self-awareness, and remember, slowing things down doesn't mean taking your foot off the gas. Slowing things down means just being more conscious, being more aware. Remember, the internals drive the. So if we know that as athletes, all right, I'm feeling a certain way. Okay, let me give myself some space. Let me take a breath, right? Because remember, when we think about mental performance, we think about what's going on between the ears. But there's the nervous system, right? Now, sleep affects that. Now we got modulators and hormones, dopamine and serotonin. All this stuff is playing around in there. So there are ways we could use breath work to slow things, right? There's ways that we can change our physiology. There's ways that we know sleep is king. So for athletes, I really believe a lot of this is the ability to slow down in the moment. Like what I'm saying here is very intellectual.
Yeah,
it needs to be experienced. It needs to be implemented, right? But imagine if everybody listening, if I said to you, slow down for a second. By the way, that doesn't mean we're losing intensity. By the way, that doesn't mean we're not playing a win. Just your whole body shifts. You go from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic, which is fight or flight to rest and digestion. Great place to make decisions. That's self-awareness. That's self-regulation. Right? I always say that pressure is a privilege because you're in a seat of responsibility. Somebody is giving that to you. We just have to know where the pressure lies sometimes. You still may be in the uncomfortable zone, but let's get it to a place where we can make decisions, where we can be conscious. It's really good feeling when you do this type of stuff.
Yeah, that's honestly your point is very valid, especially when you talk about sleep a little bit, maybe relax a little bit. But the question about that sleep is, how many hours of sleep would you suggest, for someone to have?
I'm not a sleep expert, so I think everybody's different.
Mm,
I wake up at 4:45 every morning because I've done it my whole life. But I do get 7 hours, six
seven
and a half
hours.
to seven, 7.5. But I can't lie. I nap every day. So I'll take a 20-minute nap at 12. I'm up at 4:45. I'm working out. I'm training. I
Mm,
have clients
mm,
early in the morning. So I'll take a little
mm.
snooze. But like you need sleep. It's like one of these things when people read all these self-help books, Jay,
Yeah, it
and they
says
think
like
in the
4 hours.
70th one, if you're not sleeping, if you're not exercising, if you don't care about your nutrition, and if you're not thinking about your mental game, it's all useless. These are the four pillars that need to be focused on. Because from everything else can be left. It's serious. I mean, it's true.
So sleep is very, very important
Sleep is
because,
king.
I have listened to some speakers and they say, you know what? Oh, you just need 3 hours. You need to time is it. I'm like, well, thank you for, because for, making your point in that aspect because a whole lot of people always preach the gospel of 4 hours is enough. It's enough. There's no
It's
time
not
left. So we
true.
need to get into, I feel like,
It's not. I mean,
yeah,
there's
it's not
data.
true.
There's data to defend that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about these Olympians who are going. They train all year for 4 years and they have one game, one shot. So to say that they're going to sleep the night before without anxiety, it's not true. Of course they're going to lose sleep, but just because of that one night of sleep, it's not going to affect their performance. But if you chronically don't have a good sleep schedule, you're destroying your brain, right? If you sleep well and you have a good routine, it's interesting. I mean, we can go on and on, but like having a nighttime routine is critical because it sets you up for the morning. People always talk about morning routines, but having an evening routine is extremely important. But as when I told you I had a panic attack, my sleep was bad. We were trading too many hours. I was so sleep deprived that the damage was being done. So if you don't think sleep is necessary,
Just like you said, good luck. So sleep is very, very, very necessary because you can't tell your body can shut down and never, stand up again.
you
It's
can't be
gone.
conscious.
Yeah.
All these things we're discussing about self-awareness, self-regulation, imagine doing that sleep deprived.
Hmm,
It's hard enough
hmm,
to train this way.
hmm,
You're putting yourself, and listen, somebody may tweet or write, that's crap, da da da. Well, you know what? How about this one? I'm going to coach this way. You do what you have to do, and we'll see you at the finish line.
hmm.
I'll see you at the finish line because sleep is king.
True.
All these
Sleep is
things we
king.
want to
I
do with
agree.
lack of sleep, about awareness, about mindfulness, about observing yourself. You're telling me if you have a good sleep schedule, you're not going to be better? How about this one? I'll go one-on-one against somebody who believes that sleep is not necessary. And I'll bet on myself every single day of the week.
Thank you for that information. So if you are listening to this show and you think, you really want to, have that debate, you can have it.
Good luck.
Okay, good luck.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about business leaders because this show is for not just for sport people only, athletes and all that. It's for business people and leaders. A lot of leaders and business owners, entrepreneurs, they face a lot of pressure. They face a lot of pressure. Like they need to meet up this payment. They need to do this thing. There's too many pressure. So how can they maintain and deepen their self-awareness over?
Being a business owner, being an entrepreneur is very difficult. Right? So I'm not going to minimize that. The pressure is intense, right? It is a point of there is no plan B, right? It's just plan A. And that is extremely, extremely scary. It's intense. The pressure is real. So the question is, how do we control the controllables? Right? We have to be comfortable with the uncertainties of business. We have to be uncomfortable with the uncertainties. I'm a trader of the markets. So how are we approaching things the best we can? And it has to come from a mindset from a mindset of resilience. It has to come from a mindset of slowing things down. It has to come from a mindset of intentionality, of clarity, of structure. It's, like, this, Jay, like, it's precision over perfection, right? So a lot of businesses get killed in the planning stages because they want everything to be perfect. But we know that's not true. So if we're able to have an adaptive mindset and understand that things need to change along the way, that's extremely important. But oftentimes than not, our mindsets are shaped from the past. So we have to really, and I do coach a lot of founders. We have to understand what our own obstacle and hurdles are personally, right? It's as simple as if you weren't validated as a child and you're looking for external validation and please other people, we're not keeping our eye on the ball, what we need to do. Little things like that seem inconsequential, but they're not. And then, I think leadership is such an incredible topic where kindness does matter. How you treat people matters. We always say great cultures breed exceptional performance, and it's got to come from the top. It doesn't, you could be a compassionate, empathetic leader. That doesn't diminish intensity. So sometimes we have to get clear of how we want to lead, how we want to think, how we want to approach things. Because we know business is hard as it is. And you got to work through some of your stuff, in order
Sure.
to, but it takes courage. I'm telling you that. To all those entrepreneurs and businesses owners out there, bravo. It's not
Okay.
easy.
Yeah, it's not easy because entrepreneurship is really tough.
It's very hard.
Working from Monday to Sunday,
Yeah.
sometimes sundown to, sunrise. So now someone is asking a question, which is quite vital. The question is, how do I know? Because we talk about slowdown. All right. So are there any specific tools or probably assessments that you will recommend for measuring self-awareness? When do I need to slow down? Do I need to move? Are there any tools like that?
Obviously there's neurofeedback and all these type of things that check brainwaves, but we're not all walking around with neurofeedback mechanisms during the day. That's not true. I think one of the simplest things that people don't do, and I know we've all heard it, but we've heard a lot of things and a lot of people don't do them anyway. Journaling, writing down your thoughts at the end of the day. People journal when things are going poorly. But we got to remember when things are going well, you should journal also, because giving yourself a little bit of credit actually is healthy neurologically. Write down. So you could write down the beginning. What did I do well today? What do I need to get better at? And at the bottom, have observations. How did I handle myself today? And this kind of goes full circle, Jay, to self-awareness. The more you get into a journaling, right, where you can put it on paper, and I would recommend pen to paper. It's very different than on your phone. Write things down. Become a student of yourself. Be curious. There's a lot of different things we can do, but the simplest is writing in a journal, writing down your thoughts. And it's interesting too. If you really get good at that, it's going to work for you, but stick with one thing. Like there is no holy, but journaling has been around forever and it works. Get in the habit of writing out your day, but also write out the things you've done well. Journaling would be top of mind for me. But it's interesting also, and now I'm going to sound like I'm talking my book. Working with a coach, progress is very elusive. So when little change happens as a coach, I can see it because this is what I do for a living. But my clients don't see it at first. It's almost like the compounding effect, where 2 and 2 is 4 means nothing. 4 and 4 8 means nothing. But as the numbers get bigger and the megaphone starts to open, when that door opens and all of a sudden you could see the growth, everybody, things were happening before that. That 2 and 2 counted in order to get where you had to go. You really, and I think this is the toughest part about the journey, is being patient in the progress. Because when things do start to connect, it was all that work, all that intentionality, all that slowing down to speed up, all that consistency with evidence builds confidence. All this stuff is coming through the door. Give yourself a chance.
All right, give yourself a chance. That's a very important saying. So now let's talk about. I really want to touch on meditation. how it helps mental performance. So, what's your take on meditation before we move forward?
I did transcendental meditation when I was on Wall Street. I worked, well, on Wall Street, there was the TM Center there. So I did that for a long time. But to be honest, I struggled with it. It was twice a day. My thoughts were racing. I was uncomfortable sitting. I couldn't find the right spot. I was like, okay, this is not working for me right now. But I know mindfulness is, Jay, it's obviously we know meditation is extremely helpful, right? I'm not saying it's not, because it is. Otherwise, you should throw me off your show. But for me, I've blown out knees. I just wasn't comfortable sitting in a chair. So I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? I know the practice of stilling the mind, observing the thoughts, which is mindfulness also. I know that's important. I know it's important. So what do I got to do? So luckily I sauna every morning, and I sit in a sauna with no distractions. I just sit with myself. Well, is that meditation? I don't know, but I'm sitting bored. My mind is quieting. So I guess it is meditation, but it works for me. When I take my dog out for a walk, no phone, no distractions, just me and her in nature. I get to be with my thoughts. I get to observe them. I get to see them go. I get to be in the sun. That's a form of meditation also. You have to find a place where you can be mindful of your thoughts and to let them go and to be able to slow yourself down. That could be meditation. That could be taking a nice walk without podcasts and stuff like that, being with your thoughts. But you need, these moments are meant to reset. Just reset. Reset your brain, reset your system. So do I demand people meditate? Of course not. If they enjoy it, love it. Keep doing it. But we all have to find ways that we are able to reset ourselves. Meditation is important. Mindfulness is important. But you have to find what works for you and stick with it. It is beneficial. We all know it's beneficial.
So find what works for you and stick with it. So you seem to have a very good routine, which is a nice thing, because having a good routine is one thing that keeps you alive, because you have so well structured routine. So what are some, because come routines, come habits, right? So what are some daily habits or probably routine you personally you follow? The ones you follow to
I'm
make you,
52 years
stay
old, so I've been
self-aware.
doing the same stuff for a long time. I
Yeah.
wake up early and
So
I go to bed early. That's even though I have clients late at night, that's key to me. I'm not, I think waking up early is important, but I think going to bed is even more important. We talk about morning routines, but having a solid evening routine, less light, like all this stuff you read about, it's true. Now, do you have to do all of them? No. Do I think you should implement sun on a consistent basis? Of course. For me, like my routine's nuts. In the morning, I'm cold plunging, I'm sauning, I'm stretching, then I'm working out, then I do, but my schedule is different. I'm not on Wall Street anymore, right? And my clients, you got to figure out what works for you. However, you need to have a consistent routine that you can lean on. You need one in the morning and you need one in the evening. You need to be able to bookend your day. And it doesn't have to be nuts. It doesn't have to be mine. It doesn't have to be Jay's, but it has to be one that stills you, that stretches you, that you're using your body. And at night, we have to be able to down regulate, right? Answering the question before, journaling, taking a cold shower, hot shower, whatever you like, taking an evening walk, putting down all this stuff, it's in everything we read. Pick one or two of these things. Start small, because I know it's going to help you. Jay, you always hear, we know exercise is important. And you hear people, I'm going to the gym 5 days a week. And he's never been to the gym. I go, how about we go one day? Let's just go once. We don't have to go 5. Let's build up, right? And that's how when we talk about slowing down to speed up, by starting off small and being intentional, we start to really build better habits, better foundations that we can leverage off of.
So it's very important to slow down to build up. So very, very important. Slow down, build up.
To
So
speed
what
up,
would be
exactly.
your advice? What would be your advice as we round up? What would be your just one piece of advice for someone just getting started, entrepreneur, leader, business owner, whoever it is? What would be that one advice you would give to someone who's just starting off, you know, to they're starting the journey towards a greater self-awareness? What would that would be?
Pay attention to your emotions. Obviously, you can't verbalize them in a boardroom, right? But pay attention to them and give yourself space. That would be my first step, right? Because if we could start to realize how we feel, because it's emotional data, right? Emotions are huge, right? Because they're there. But if we know how to use them, how to act on them and not act on them, and choose behavior, it's big. But literally, when you feel your temperature, you feel your heart, right? Remember, when we talk about emotions, it's also visceral, right? They say the stomach is the second brain. We could feel our heart rate start to beat up. We could feel our breathing getting shallow. Like something's going on, right? So that's the nervous system moving here. Recognize that. Start to really pay attention to your emotions and your body. That's it. Because that act alone is putting you in a conscious seat. That act alone will give you that 1 second not to react. And then, like we said earlier in this conversation, Jay, about acknowledgement, verbalize, pause, question, choose. It's a new experience. Start working on it. It's a great model to plug into play almost anything you do. And it really starts to be where you operate from.
That was a very powerful advice. And
Thank
for
you.
the listeners, for business owners, this is very powerful advice you need to grab and follow through. So now let's take a look at you for the very last time. So can you share any upcoming projects or initiatives you're excited about with the M1 Performance Group?
We have a lot of things in the works. We're going to be on stage a lot. We have a lot of new clients coming on board, which is great. Usually I don't discuss my clients, right? Because I don't think it's the right thing to do. But there's a lot of things. What I'm really excited about, Jay, is people are really starting to look for help because they know there's a lot more in the tank. So what I'm really excited about, the word's spreading. The word's spreading, the fact that it's all right to get help. And it's all right to be better. There's something called a holistic wealth movement, right? Which is a well-being, a discipline, self-care. People are starting to really embrace this because we all have this gorgeous potential. And I think people are starting to believe it, and people want to feel better. They understand that they have resistances in the past and they want to work through them. I think it's amazing. I think it helps people, but I think it helps us as a huge community. So when you ask me what I'm looking forward to, I'm looking forward to where we're moving as a society and as people. That's what I'm most excited about.
All right, I look forward to that too. I look forward to the M1 Performance Group events, projects. I look forward
Yeah.
that I'm going to be following up. So where can our listeners learn more about your work and connect with you?
I have a website. It's m1performancegroup.com. Tons of podcasts are on there. I got a cool video, all that type of stuff. I have a
Yeah.
lot of content on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm currently going to be on TikTok, but my daughter set it up for me and I don't know her password. So I got to get in touch with her to try to figure this one out. But I'm on Twitter, letter X. We are in the next week or two of my own YouTube channel. So we got a lot of things moving on.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
But you
I
can
think
find me in
TikTok.
a lot of different places. And also you
Yeah,
can set up a discovery call if you enjoyed this. And,
sure.
it's a 45-minute call if you want to talk about mental performance and how you can get better, how we can work together. I'm always open for that.
All right. So TikTok is a great channel, great platform, for short videos that people are going to enjoy.
Yeah,
And
I got to get
also
on
yeah,
it.
there's this video you have on LinkedIn, the one I took a look at. It's super nice. I love the video.
Yeah, it's a good
Wow,
one.
super, super, super nice, super dope. I wish someday I'm gonna be able to shoot that to myself. But it's super nice. I loved it,
You
to be
will.
honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we always do this, which is gonna be the final, statement on before we close the show, would you suggest like 5 resources, maybe books or whatever it is? But most times it's books, 5 books that people can read more about self-awareness and even about being strategic in business that you would suggest.
I just finished a book called Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. And I love his stuff, actually. Let me just see what the book is. And he wrote a book called Think Again, which I think are phenomenal. I'm a huge fan of Andrew Huberman. He's the scientist out of Stanford. He's got the Huberman Lab podcast. That's a must. I'm a big fan. Traction is another good book. If we're talking business, I think that's a great book. And I'm also a huge fan of nature. Literally, get outside. Go take a walk. There's some great resources out there. Get some sun on your face. Get amongst the trees. Let yourself down. Because reading and learning is important. But implementing is even more important. Right. And I would give you advice when you read these, give yourself space between each one. I know we say space a lot now, and go implement it. Put it to work. Each chapter you read something interesting, put it to work. See what it's about. Be curious, be open-minded. That's how I read books, and that's how I use them. Put them to work. Use it. Right. What do they say? Knowledge without action is nothing. It's just
Nothing.
Useless.
So knowledge without action is nothing. So so thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Winner Circle. And that's all we have for today's episode of the Winner Circle podcast. I want to thank our amazing guest, Evan Max, for his input and knowledge, shared on the episode topic, which is transforming life through the power of self-awareness. So thank you so much, everyone. And make sure you follow and subscribe and share this podcast. And if you have any questions, you can always shoot me an email. You have my email. And if you have any, you want to learn more about Evermax, just make sure you go through the website. And we're going to share some of the information below, so probably you can get 1 or 2 informations and follow up with him. And he does this discovery call, 45-minute discovery call. So you can always, learn more about, self-awareness and more other topics. So that's all we have for today. And see you soon. Have a nice day, guys.
This is the symbol of Yergo